Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Yesterday, Thursday, US President Donald Trump announced a fresh wave of tariffs on imports from China, alongside levies on Canada and Mexico set to take effect on the 4th of March. The move marks an escalation in the trade war between the United States and China, with significant economic and geopolitical implications. Trump declared that an additional 10% tariff will be imposed on all Chinese imports, supplementing the 10% increase announced earlier this month. This brings the total additional tariff burden on Chinese goods to 20%, on top of tariffs imposed during the first administration and maintained throughout President Joe Biden's term. These tariffs, according to Trump, are a direct response to China's role in the fentanyl trade, with the goal of pressuring Beijing to curb exports of chemicals used to produce the illicit drug. In an interview with Fox News, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused China of engaging in a, quote, reverse opium war, end quote, via fentanyl. In response to the first tariff hike earlier this month, China responded with a suite of retaliatory measures. These included additional 15% tariffs on US coal, liquefied natural gas, crude oil, agricultural machinery, large displacement automobiles, and pickup trucks. Export controls on critical minerals and materials such as tungsten and others. The addition of US firms PVH and Illumina to the unreliable entry list, and publishing an ongoing antitrust investigation into Google and other US technology companies. The timing of these new tariffs, announced yesterday, is notable, as China's annual two sessions meetings, a key political event, are set to begin next week. This may influence Beijing's decision-making, potentially leading to further economic countermeasures. As we've said over and over again on China Update, China is in the more vulnerable position as it has a very large trade surplus with the United States, meaning it relies more on US demand, that is the US market, more than the other way around. The new tariffs have already impacted global markets. China's offshore renminbi weakened by 0.3% to 7.289 per dollar, while the US dollar climbed 0.6% against a basket of major currencies. Analysts warned that sustained high tariffs could significantly reduce China's exports to the US, hurting Chinese growth. As regular viewers know, China's exports are one of the few bright spots in its economic data. The initial 10% tariff hike on China was expected to have only a limited effect on China's growth in the near term, according to analysts Chang Shu, Eric Zhu, and David Chu of Bloomberg Economics in a recent note. Quote, but higher permanent tariffs would bring considerable pain. An increase to 60% would slash China's exports to the US by almost 80%, putting 2.3% of GDP at risk in the medium term. End quote. That represents about half of China's GDP growth goal for 2025. While Chinese officials have expressed willingness to purchase more US goods and invest in American businesses to mitigate the trade imbalances, substantial negotiations have yet to materialize. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether these tariffs lead to productive negotiations or spiral into deeper economic confrontation. Next up, in a move that has drawn widespread criticism from human rights organizations and Western governments, Thailand has deported 40 Uyghur asylum seekers to China. The men had been detained in Thailand for nearly a decade after fleeing Xinjiang, where China has been accused of committing atrocities against the predominantly Muslim ethnic group. The deportations took place in secrecy, echoing a similar incident in 2015 when Thailand handed over more than 100 Uyghurs to Chinese authorities. That transfer was widely condemned after images surfaced of detainees wearing black hoods while being transported. This time, Chinese state media presented a more controlled narrative, showing some of the returnees disembarking in Kashgar and reuniting with family members. However, some commentators warned that despite the, quote, softened propaganda, end quote, their fate remains uncertain. The US State Department was quick to condemn the move. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated, quote, China, under the direction and control of the Chinese Communist Party, has committed genocide and crimes against humanity, targeting predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and other members of ethnic and religious minority groups in Xinjiang, end quote. Notably, Rubio used the past tense, has committed, contrasting with his predecessor Antony Blinken, who had referred to, quote, ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity, End quote. The repatriation of the Uyghurs underscores China's growing influence in Southeast Asia. Thailand, a key regional partner, has faced mounting pressure from Beijing to return Uyghur detainees under the pretext of cracking down on illegal immigration. A spokesperson for China's National Immigration Administration confirmed the cooperation, stating, quote, "Based on the spirit of mutual respect and equal consultation, we have strengthened collaboration with Thai immigration authorities to combat cross-border crimes." End quote. However, human rights advocates argue that the deportations violate international law, which prohibits returning individuals to a country where they may face persecution. Tritinan Progsud Hirak, a political science professor at Chulalongkorn University, for example, expressed yesterday, quote, "This recent pattern of Thailand catering to the Chinese government without due process will stand Thailand in bad stead with the United States," end quote, adding, quote, "It doesn't generate goodwill in the Muslim world, and worst of all, the Uyghurs will suffer," end quote. Meanwhile, advocacy groups fear that the returnees will disappear into China's vast system of detention camps, where numerous reports have documented forced labor, indoctrination, and abuse. Beijing strongly denies these reports, maintaining that Uyghurs, like other Chinese citizens, will be prosecuted according to the law. Next up, we have two more developments to cover, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button, liking, sharing with someone who you think will get some value from it as well, and subscribing if you've not done so already are all tremendous helps for the channel. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable. Thank you so much. Next up, as regulatory pressures mount, TikTok and its parent company ByteDance are reportedly in discussions with the Trump administration to forge a deal that would allow the popular social media platform to continue operating in the United States without undergoing a forced sale. According to Japanese financial media outlet Nikkei Asia, ByteDance remains firmly opposed to selling TikTok outright, but is open to structuring an agreement that increases US investment while keeping control of the platform within China's grasp. These negotiations are being led by key US officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. One potential framework involves using a variable interest entity, VIE, a joint venture, or another financial mechanism to increase US investor involvement without transferring TikTok's core algorithm, a move ByteDance considers non-negotiable. However, such a deal would appear to contradict the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, which mandates that TikTok either sever its ties with ByteDance or face a ban in the US. Unless the Trump administration successfully pushes Congress to amend or repeal this law, any agreement that keeps ByteDance in control of TikTok is expected to face significant legal hurdles. One lingering question is who would have the standing to challenge a potentially unlawful deal. Some legal experts speculate that multiple state attorneys general could file lawsuits to block any agreement that skirts federal law. However, as of now, no legal action has been taken. Amid this uncertainty, competitors like Instagram are looking to capitalize on TikTok's precarious position. According to US technology media outlet The Information, Instagram is considering launching a standalone Reels app to replicate TikTok's user experience. If this move materializes, it could further fragment the short-form video market and increase pressure on TikTok to secure its future in the US. With no clear resolution in sight, TikTok's fate remains entangled in a complex web of politics, national security concerns, and corporate maneuvering, raising the stakes for all parties involved. And finally for today, on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, Beijing held its so-called 2025 Taiwan Work Conference. The event underscored China's increasingly assertive, arguably aggressive, approach toward Taiwan. The meeting, attended by Wang Huning and presided over by China's top diplomat Wang Yi, introduced a new phrase into official rhetoric: shape the inevitable trend of reunification of the motherland. Wang Huning, who oversees Taiwan affairs, emphasized the importance of resisting foreign interference. Quote, "It is necessary to firmly oppose and curb interference by external forces and consolidate the international community's pattern of adhering to the One China principle." End quote. Coinciding with this rhetoric, the People's Liberation Army, PLA, launched live fire drills on Wednesday, just 40 nautical miles off Taiwan's southwest coast. Taiwan's Ministry of Defense condemned the unannounced military exercises, which included 32 aircraft and multiple naval vessels, accusing China of violating international norms, stating, quote, "During this period, it even blatantly violated international practice by setting up drills area in waters about 40 nautical miles off the coast without prior warning, claiming it would carry out shooting training," end quote. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also rebuked recent US military aid to Taiwan, particularly the $870 million earmarked for security programs. Spokesperson Lin Jian denounced the move, stating it, quote, "seriously violates the One China principle," end quote, and, quote, "sends a very wrong signal to Taiwan independent separatist forces," end quote. Beijing has long accused Washington of using Taiwan as a tool to contain the country. Another development that may have broader implications is China's accusation that Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, is handing over the country's prized semiconductor industry to the United States. Beijing's Taiwan Affairs Office spokesperson emphasized on Wednesday, quote, "In order to seek selfish gain, the DPP authorities have freely made demands from external forces," end quote, claiming Taiwan is allowing its chip industry to become a pawn in geopolitical struggles. And perhaps the most inflammatory statement this week, adding to the escalatory rhetoric, Defense Ministry spokesperson Wu Qian issued a stark warning to Taiwan's leadership on Thursday, quote, "Like a mantis trying to stop a chariot with its arms, you can only bring about your own destruction. Sooner or later, we will get you," end quote. The language does seem more fiery than usual. One notable omission, too, from this week's Taiwan Work Conference is from the official readout was the phrase, "promote the peaceful development of cross-strait relations," which appeared in previous years. The shift in language suggests a hardening stance from Beijing, with unification, or Beijing would say reunification, being framed less as an aspiration and more as an inevitable course of action. As tensions rise, Taiwan finds itself in an increasingly precarious position, with Beijing ramping up both military pressure and diplomatic offensives. The coming months may reveal whether this shift in rhetoric will translate into concrete actions, further heightening tensions in the Taiwan Strait, the most dangerous flashpoint in the world today. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Friday, have a restful weekend, and I will see you all tomorrow.